It's my pleasure this morning to take us through the part of the program that has the plenary sessions and to let you know a little bit about why we're here. This is the second of a series of educational engagements that the University of Guyana's brand new think tank is collaborating with several agencies and stakeholder groups on. The think tank was launched in June last year, 2019, and it is not only concerned with matters to do with oil and gas, but it's concerned with all matters to do with energy, so sustainable energy, renewable energy. We became interested in the matter of the Natural Resources Fund for several reasons, because a number of us had been, in fact, working with the Ministry of Finance, with stakeholder groups as university for about 2 years before on the actual act itself, and we had been working also with some international support. Two of those people are in the room with us this morning, Dr. Eric Parado and Dr. Michael Wild. And of course, David Singh, who was at Conservation International at the time, and a number of us who had a small round table who were working on it. When the act was passed, the university recognized that there were a part of a 22-man or 22-person group called the Public Accounts Oversight Committee, the PAOC, and that we really needed to understand how best we could serve on that committee as a university itself. But then in speaking with others who were also part of that committee, we recognized that the requirements of the committee were so highly technical that it was important for everyone who would be on the committee serving with the university to understand basically how the act worked, their own role, and to be, supported in making the best decisions they could to that committee whenever it is formed. And so our role is simply a coordinating one, which we basically lead. Not because anybody appointed us, but because the university does lead and does take the lead and is best, I believe, suited to do that in this moment. And our interest is not in necessarily putting a committee together. That's not our function, it's not our mandate, but our interest is in public education and making sure that everyone understands what the Act provides for and begins to think about how they will choose their one single representative, which is an interesting prospect in and of itself, when the time comes for such a committee to be put in place. And that should be very soon. As you know, Guyana's first lift is scheduled for this month, and then there are issues about what happens with that money and so on, and how the oversight for it will happen. We had been working, this is probably our 18th engagement or so, with groups in the room, many of whom we know, privately on one-on-one basis over several months. So we've flown out to the regions, we have met with people at the university in their offices everywhere where it was convenient for them so that we could talk about, really interrogate the Act and see how the role of the PAOC and what their roles would be. So we are no strangers to each other in the room. This morning, I'd like to also acknowledge and welcome our brand new Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Eddie Green, himself a career diplomat. He will speak to you in a few minutes. I'd like to welcome again to Guyana Shores and to thank Dr. Eric Parado, who was the manager of the Chilean Sovereign Wealth Fund and who has spent a lot of time with us in the past 2-3 years working pro bono on helping us to get this our own head around how funds work. Dr. Michael Wild from the Commonwealth Secretariat, who is also their lead, I would like to say scrutineer, but observer on their Sovereign Wealth Fund project from around the world, and with a special interest in Guyana. He also has been here, and the Commonwealth has been supporting his work in Guyana. We'd like to thank the Commonwealth as well, and IDB also, although for allowing Eric to be here today. We have the offering of the Policy Forum in Guyana at the last minute, and we're really happy to have him, Rahul Basu, who is here from Go Institute and several other foundations in the world which look at natural resource management and governance. He was here under the auspices of the Policy Forum and other groups this last weekend, and he has extended his stay to be able to stay with us today, and we thank him for that. And this one, I need to look at because I remember his first name, last name, I have to write. So Dr. Tarcisio Granzio, who is the director for the World Wildlife Fund in Ecuador, but his claim to fame for being here today is because he also, when he was in another job, was also managing Ecuador's fund. No? He will tell us. He was the Minister of Environment in Ecuador, right? So not managing the fund, Minister of Environment in Ecuador. And the person who was telling me what he was doing, of course, is responsible for his being here, and that's David Singh, now Regional Director for WWF, based in Suriname, and David has facilitated his being here. So we have a wonderful panel this morning, today, and of course, we will hear from them. So in order to give you a warm and resounding welcome on behalf of the university, please allow me to invite our Chancellor, Professor Edward Green, to the podium to do this. Thank you.
Morning all. Thank you very much, Professor Mohammed. All protocols recognized. I am very pleased to be here, especially to note the role that the University of Guyana is playing in coordinating this activity. It is an important role for the university to play and interact with stakeholders across the spectrum with the important intent to ensure that we put in place at the cusp of this new economy a system of governance and accountability. I am very pleased also to note that the University of Guyana is one of the 22 entities in the Public Accountability and Oversight Committee, which is really very important in the context of the establishment of this governance arrangement, and in particular, the establishment of the National Resource Fund. In fact, when Professor Paloma introduced the program, I was very happy to hear that she had placed emphasis on what must be the ongoing role of the university to increase, establish, and consolidate public awareness on issues like these, and in fact, to ensure that the information that is being disseminated is evidence-based. And she mentioned in particular understanding the act under which the NRF will work, and also the issues related, the underlying issues related to how Guyana could move towards greater accountability. Because really, in recent times, mostly because of the expanding reach of social media, we have to be very aware that the information for which we are disseminating to increase public awareness is somewhat situated in evidence rather in sensationalization. And so I think that this is an important role, and I'm very glad to see that the university is involved. But the university by itself will not be able to achieve the goals and the results that you have, your lofty goals and results that you have set yourself. And I want to just mention that in recognizing the complexity of the situation, Guyana needs to take greater account of the fact that in today's world, diplomacy, technical decisions such as what to do with oil and gas and the revenue, that it is really no longer the preserve of state actors, of governments. It even is not the role of private-public partnerships. But I was pleased to see that you understand that the role is expanding civil society and the partners, faith leaders, the trade unions, the NGOs. And I'm so happy to note that the discussions that you have been having the discussions are taking into consideration the fact that the influential roles and the connectivity between this particular think tank activity and the civil society. But it's also important to note that we're operating in an environment where the issue of the Cold War has been revived. And in particular, the contest between the USA, China, Russia could play an important role, significant in how we chart those waters of diplomacy in making the public aware of how to tread between the lines. In fact, it is important for us to recognize that as we move towards this uncharted mission in the new economy, that we have to consider what is happening with respect to Venezuela and the context this would have in terms of the Cold War, how in fact we must make the population aware of these divisive and these tendencies that could erupt and destroy the mission that you're being established. I also think that there are many institutions on which we can draw on for expertise, and I'm glad to see that we're doing exactly this with the Commonwealth Secretariat, GOA, and also with the Honorable Minister and his expertise and experience in this field. So, in fact then, what I want to end by saying is that Guyana has committed to spending about 1/3 of its oil proceeds on its development, while placing approximately 2/3, as I see it's not in the act, I saw it in the government's pronouncements, to at least put about 2/3 into the fund. And this is important. How will this fund be managed? How will we do it so that we prevent the resource curse? And in fact, how will we do it so that future generations will benefit and the real sustainable development objective of Guyana will be satisfied? Its agriculture, its investment in human capital, etc. And so today I look forward to listening to the discussions with a view to joining you as you advocate for greater public awareness and as you participate in greater public awareness and that you disseminate the information that is actually evidence-based rather than sensational. I want to thank you again, Professor Paloma Mohammed, for the leadership role that you have played, not only with respect to to this particular initiative, but others that are interrelated with this. And I want to thank you, the audience, and say welcome to you in this very, very important venture on which you embark. Thank you very much.